Chapter 3, The Legend of Hiram, The Lost Keys of Freemasonry, by Manly P. Hall. This book is 100 years old, and we're going to continue our reading. Chapter 3 is entitled, The Fellow Craft. Not only does life manifest through action on the physical plane, but coming down from above, it manifests through emotion and the expressions of human sentiment. It is this type of energy which is taken up by the student when he starts his labors in the fellow craft. From youth, with its smiling face, he passes on to the greater responsibilities of manhood. On the second step of the temple stands a soldier dressed in shining armor, but his sword is sheathed and a book in his hand. He is symbolic of strength, of the energy of Mars, and of the wonderful step in the spiritual unfoldment which we know as fellow craft. Through each one of their courses, the fiery rays of human emotion, a great seething, boiling cauldron of power behind each action and expression of human energy. Like spirited horses chafing at the bit, like hounds eager for the chase, the emotional powers in man cannot be held in check, but breaking away the walls of restraint, they pour through his being in fiery, flaming expressions of dynamic energy. It is this great principle of emotion which we know as the second murderer of Hiram. It is through the provision of human emotions that there comes into the world many of its countless sorrows, which through reaction manifest in man's mental and physical bodies. Let me read that again. It says, it is through the provision of human emotions that there comes into the world many of its countless sorrows, which through reaction manifest in man's mental and physical bodies. You know, there's this book written called The Emotion Code, and it's all about how when people start experiencing different illnesses or they start experiencing symptoms, it's because they have emotional energies that are trapped in their body, and those symptoms that they're having or those illnesses that they're having is kind of like, it's like the body telling them, hey, there's some bad emotions trapped in your body, and those the symptoms or the illnesses, it's like a signal telling the body, hey, you need to cleanse the body of these negative emotions. You need to release these negative energies from your body, and then when those energies are released, then the symptoms start going away. And there's different methods of releasing the emotional energies that get trapped in people's bodies. Some methods are through meditation or through like the subconscious mind. And there's different practitioners that do this and teach people how to release negative emotions that are trapped in their body. It's pretty interesting stuff. It is strange how the divine powers may become perverted until each expression and urge becomes a ruffian and a murderer. The divine compassion of the gods manifest in this world of form very differently than in the realms of light. Divine compassion is energized by the same influxes as mortal passions and the lusts of earth. The spiritual light rays of cosmos, the fire princes of the dawn, seethe and surge through unregenerated man as the impulses which he perverts into murder and hate. The great ceaseless power of chaos, the seething pinwheel spirals of never-ceasing motion, whose wild cadences are the music of the spheres, are energized by the same great power which man used to destroy the highest and the best. The great mystic power that sends the planets in gigantic orbits around the solar bodies, the energy which keeps each electron vibrating, spinning and whirling, the great energy which is building the temple of God as it drives the nail and saws the plank, is now a merciless slave driver, which, unmastered and uncurbed, strikes the compassionate one and sends him reeling backwards into darkness of his prison. Man does not listen to that little voice which speaks to him in ever-loving, ever-sorrowful note. This voice speaks of the peace accompanying the constructive application of energy which he must chain if he would master the powers of creation. How long will it take King Hiram, the Tyre, the warrior on the second step, symbolic of the fellow craft of the cosmic lodge, to teach mankind the lessons of self-mastery? The teacher can do it only as he daily depicts the miseries which are the result of unmastered appetites. The strength of man was not made to be used destructively, but was given him that he might build a temple worthy of the dwelling place of the great architect of the universe. God is glorifying himself through the individualized portions of himself, and is slowly teaching these individualized portions to understand and glorify the entire. The day has come when fellow craftsmen must know and apply their knowledge that the lost key to their grade is the mastery of emotion, which places the energy of the universe at their disposal. The only way that man can ever expect to be entrusted with great powers is by proving his ability to use them constructively and selflessly. When the Mason learns that the key to the warrior on the block is the proper application of the dynamo of living power, he has learned the mystery of his craft. The seething, surging energies of Lucifer are in the hands, and before he may step onward and upward, he must prove his ability to properly apply energy. And I think when they refer to Lucifer in here, I think they're just talking about light, because I believe Lucifer means light, if I'm not mistaken. He must follow in the footsteps of his forefather, Tubal-Cain, who with the mighty strength of the war god hammer his sword into the plowshare. Incessant watchfulness over thought, action, and desire is indispensable to those who wish to make progress in the unfolding of their own being, and the fellow craft's degree is the degree of transmutation. He must use the hand that slays to lift the suffering, while the lips given to the cursing must be taught to pray. The heart that hates must learn the mystery of compassion as the result of a deeper and more perfect understanding of man's relation to his brother. The firm, kind hand of spirit must curb the flaming powers of emotion with the iron grip of mastery. In the realization and application of these principles lies the key to the fellow craft. In this degree, one point of the compass is taken out from under the square. The 2 points of the compass, of course, symbolize the heart and the mind. And with the expression of the higher emotions, the heart point of the compass is liberated from the square, which is an instrument used to measure the block of matter and therefore symbolizes form. A large percentage of the people of the world at the present time are passing through spiritually the degree of the fellow craft with its 5 senses. The sense perceptions come under the control of the emotional energies. Therefore, the development of the senses is necessary to the constructive expression of the fellow craft power. Man must realize that all the powers which his millions of years of need have earned for him have come into order, that through them he may liberate more fully the prisoner within his own being. As the fellow craft's degree is the middle of the 3, the spiritual duty of each member is to reach the point of poise or balance, which is always secured between extremes. The mastery of expression is also to be found in this degree. The key words of the fellow craft may be briefly defined as compassion, poise, and transmutation. And, if we back up just a little bit to where it says, as the fellow craft's degree is the middle of the three, the spiritual duty of each member is to reach the point of pose of balance, which is always secured between extremes. And I think when they say between extremes, I think they're talking about like the law of polarity, how there's always like an extreme side of these things that are one and the same, like how there's hot and cold, and how there's angry and happy, or there's love and fear. But there's really there's no fine line that is the exact point of, okay, now it's one or the other. They blend together, and I think that's what they're talking about when he says to find the balance in between those extremes, is to learn how to control the polarities and the emotions. In the fellow craft, degree is concealed, the dynamo of human life. The fellow craft is the worker with elemental fire, which it is his duty to transmute into spiritual light. There's a little footnote here. It says, the five senses are hearing, seeing, feeling, smelling, and tasting. The heart is the center of his activity, and it is while in this degree that the human side of the nature, with its constructive emotions, should be brought out and emphasized, but all of these expressions of the human heart must become transmuted into the emotionless compassion of the gods, who, in spite of the suffering of the moment, gaze down upon mankind and see that it is good. When the candidate feels that he has reached a point where he is a master of these things, and is able to manifest everything energizing current and fire flame in a constructive, balanced manner, and has spiritually lifted the heart sentiments of the mystic out of the cube of matter, he may then expect that the degree of Master Mason is not far off. And he may look forward eagerly to the time of his spiritual ordination into the higher degree. He should now study himself and realize that he cannot receive promotion into the spiritual lodge until his heart is attuned to a superior spiritual influx let me read that again. Until his heart is attuned to a superior spiritual influx from the causal planes of consciousness. The following requirements are necessary before the student can spiritually say that he is a member of the ancient and accepted rite of the fellow craft. And then it says, number 1, the mastery of temper and emotional outbreaks of all kinds, poise under trying conditions, kindness in the face of unkindness, and simplicity with its accompanying power. These points show that the seeker is worthy of being taught by a fellow craftsman. Number 2, the mastery of the animal energies, the curbing of passion and desire, and the control of the lower nature mark the faithful attempts on the part of the student to be worthy of the fellow craft. 3, the understanding and mastery of the creative forces and consecrating of them to the unfolding of the spiritual nature, and a proper understanding of their physical application are necessary steps at this stage of the student's growth. 4, the transmutation of personal affection into impersonal compassion shows that the fellow craftsman truly understands his duties and is living in a way which is worthy of his order. Personalities cannot bind the true second-degree member, for having raised one point of the compass, he now realizes that all personal manifestations are governed by impersonal principles. 5, at this point, the candidate consecrates the 5 senses to the study of human problems with the unfolding of sense centers as the motive, for he realizes that the 5 senses are keys, the proper application of which will give him material for spiritual transmutation if he will apply to them the common divisor of analogy. The entered apprentice may be termed as materialistic degree, or as a materialistic degree. The fellow craft is religious and mystical, while the master mason is occult or philosophical. Each of these is a degree in the unfoldment of the connected life and intelligence, which reveals in ever greater expression the gradual liberation of the master from the triangular cell of threefold negation, which marks the early stage of individualization. And then it says, titled The Master Mason. And then it says, thoughtlessness. The most noble tool of the Mason is his mind, but its value is measured by the use made of it. Thoughtful in all things, the aspiring candidate to divine wisdom attains reality in sincere desire, in meditation, and in silence. Let the keynote of the craft and of the ritual be written in blazing letters, "Think on me." What is the meaning of this mystic maze of symbols, rites, and rituals? Think. What does life mean? With the crisscrossing of human relationship, the endless pageantry of qualities masquerading in a carnival of fools? Think. What is the plan behind it all? And who is the planner? Where dwells the great architect? And what is the tracing board upon which he designs? Think. What is the human soul? And why the endless yearning to ends unknown along pathways where each must wander unaccompanied? Why mind? Why soul? Why spirit? And in truth, why anything? Think. Is there an answer? If so, where will the truth be found? Think, brothers of the craft, think deeply, for if truth exists, you have it. And if truth be within the reach of the living creature, what other goal is worth the struggle? That is the end of chapter 3.